So, I've been really, really lucky to just spend the last few hours with Jacqueline and her sister and her lovely staff, having a really good chin wag, I think. We've done everything from rescue dogs through to West Ham through to cancer. But when we were looking for somebody to take the Inspirational award, when we were researching, we absolutely believed that Jacqueline was absolutely right to get this award. She has advocated the women's agenda. She has inspired people with her entrepreneurial business. She has taught and shown love as a mother. And she has faced some challenges in her life, including surviving cancer. So that, in its own right, I'm absolutely honoured that you accepted the award for us. Thank you so much. So now I'd like to just bring some of those experiences to life, if I may. And as we understand it, you originally started working at Ann Summers as work experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I certainly can. It's been a very... Mine's not on, is it? No?
Really close to you.
I've got to say, Laura, it's been a very colourful journey. So I worked for Roll Dalton. I worked at Ann Summers. My intention was to work very briefly because it was a very male-dominated business. I had no intention of staying. Most of the people that worked there were men. The customers were certainly all men. Actually, I got invited to, I don't know if ladies in the room will remember Pippity. Do you remember Pippity? So I was invited just by chance to a Pippity party in a place called Thamesmead, which is a sort of a big council estate in southeast London. And I went to this party, and if you could just sort of imagine this, there I was sitting in this sort of very smoke-filled room, all of us ladies all crammed together on sofas. And there I was drawing a picture of my husband's meat and two veg on a piece of paper on top of my head. And I sort of remember thinking, this is not exactly how I imagined my career started. But actually, it was the women in the room knew that I was doing work experience at Ann Summers. And they said to me, you know, we're sort of talking 37 years ago. Obviously, I was only 2 at the time. They said to me, look, they knew that I worked at Ann Summers, we want to be able to buy sexy underwear, we want to be able to buy toys to spice up our marriages and our sex lives, but we're too embarrassed to go into a sex shop. And in those days, you could not buy sexy underwear in the high street like you can today. You know, it's a given today, you know, you've got so many different options. Shall I go on? Okay. And so, I came away thinking, you know, there's something in this, there's a good idea here. So I tried to use some of the products that were obviously aimed at men, which was a bit challenging, and did some of the parties myself, just to sort of see how it went. And remember the customers sort of passing the items along like this, very sort of excited but curious and very nervous at the same time. Whereas today, I'll have to speak up, come back. Whereas today, our customers, you know, they know what sizes they come in, they want to know what features they've got. Obviously, much more product aware than they used to be. So this all went well, and then I decided to take the idea to the board to see if I could get investment to take the idea forward. And I remember sort of 21 years old walking down this sort of narrow corridor to the boardroom for the board meeting, and walking into this sort of meeting full of middle-aged, grey-suited men, all sat around a table. And I didn't know how to put a business plan together. I didn't really, you know, I had my piece of paper, but it wasn't as, you know, what we're sort of used to doing today. But I felt really, really passionate about the idea. And during my presentation, I remember one board member stood up, threw down his pen on the table, and said to me, well, this isn't going to work, is it? He said, women aren't even interested in sex. So thank you, ladies, for thinking wrong. But obviously it said a lot more about his sex life than it did mine. And then after that, I did get some investment, and I used to advertise in the London Evening Standard. I'd drive up to the Strand Palace Hotel in my mustard-coloured Mini, and to sort of a room full of probably 25, 30 people, I'd stand there and talk about the idea, and then personally recruit and go and train individual, the women that were interested. And within less than a year, we had 500 sales organisers. It grew that rapidly. And actually, we had to stop advertising because the teething problems, we couldn't cope with the teething problems. So my first year's turnover, I think, was 83,000, and today it's 130 million.
So you've talked a little bit about the challenges, so the all-male boardroom being one, but there must have been many other standout moments, challenges, things you've had to kind of get around. Could you share a little?
I'll try and do the shortcut version. I've been arrested twice, I've received a bullet through the post, and I've taken the government to court. So I think that pretty sums up the challenges. But if I just focus on one, I'll talk about the bullet through the post, because we were doing parties in the UK. They were hugely successful. We were doing, just like I said, we were growing rapidly. But what was interesting was that in Ireland, the parties, the spend per head was higher than it was in the UK. So I thought, my God, there's great potential in Ireland. So, we had this idea that the next step would be to open a store in Dublin and take it from the, party plan actually into a store. And so we started to go ahead with this idea, and in a very short time we chose the location. Although for anybody that is familiar with Dublin, we chose O'Connell Street, where there was rather a bit controversial in some ways. The GPO building probably wasn't helpful, but anyway, we chose this location, and within a very short space of time I got bombarded with phone calls and letters from the Dublin Corporation, actually, as it was known at that time, the equivalent of our council. So I decided to invite them over and show them our business and what we were trying to achieve. And they came over. I remember them absolutely clearly, Alan and Kieran. They spent the morning with our retail director, touring around our stores and seeing what we were doing. And then in the afternoon, it was the boardroom with myself, and my sister Vanessa was there, and a few other people. Alan sort of sat at the table. I was obviously at the head of the table. He could not look at me. He looked straight ahead for the entire duration of the meeting. Kieran, on the other hand, was right here, telling me how much he loved sex and interested in your sex life. But they clearly were playing good cop, bad cop. Anyway, whatever I said, I was trying to talk them through how, we wanted to empower women in the bedroom, and this, talking about what we were trying to achieve. They were having none of it, and at the end I said, look, come on, you've got your own agenda, haven't you? Whatever I say, it's not going to change your minds. And they said, well, that's the case. And as they left, they said to me, but one word of warning. He said, if you go ahead with this store opening, we cannot take responsibility for what might happen to you. Rather chilling words, but not that obviously you hold them responsible at all. But a week later, I received a bullet through the post. And it was scary, actually, and forgive me for thinking, God, do I go ahead with this? Do I go to the opening? But I went to every single store opening at that time. And you feel, ladies here that run their own businesses, you feel passionate about what you do. I wasn't going to not go. So I made the decision that I was going to go. And a couple of days before I went out there, I got a call from the Late Late Show, which has sort of got quite a cult following in Ireland, hasn't it? And I'd not heard of it before, and I'd certainly never done any TV before. And they wanted me to go on there. We'd had loads of bad publicity, by the way, about this, the whole thing. And I thought the only way that I can sort of really get our point across is by going on this show. So I remember accepting the invitation, and there I was sitting in the green room, and Michael Crawford was actually on before me. I could hear the audience laughing, and I think, oh my God, how am I going to follow this? And I went out onto the stage, and they had a live audience, sort of like a tier system. And I looked out into the audience, and who's sitting right at the very front? It was, Alan and Kieran. I thought, no, I've been set up. I remember thinking that. Anyway, Alan got up, he's beating his chest, telling the audience how, terrible this is, coming to O'Connell Street and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, God, this is just awful. Absolutely awful. And then it was my turn, and of course I explained why we were doing it, just like I did to you earlier. And it was just amazing. One by one, women in the audience were standing up, pointing down at them at the front, saying, "How dare you tell us where we can and can't shop?" That was a big relief, and it was, fantastic to see that amazing response. And despite having a writ served to us on the very first day of opening, we had 10,000 people through the door signing our petition. And not only did we win our court case, but not only is Dublin now one of our top 3 performing stores in our 130 store portfolio. But we're also on the tourist bus route.
So, and we've been chatting about this, but you were diagnosed with breast cancer in 2016. And what can you tell the ladies about that experience?
Okay, so, I've always been very vigilant, always. I'm very health conscious as a person, so I've always checked my breasts. And I checked my breast in the September of 2016. Thought, oh, that feels a bit strange, but, I thought, oh, it must just, be one of those things. Never thought anything more of it. Checked it again a month later. I thought, oh, that feels a little bit stranger. I better mention it to the doctor. But I never, for one moment, thought that there was anything, more sinister going on. So I went to the doctors, actually about something else. And this is, by the way, I had a mammogram 6 months earlier and nothing had shown up at all. So I went to the doctors, and she said, oh, well, where is it? So as I felt to show her where it was, I could feel this pea-sized lump. And I just knew, and I said, oh, there it is, and she felt it. And she, actually, Sabine, and she's very, she's very honest, and that's how I would want her to be. And she said, I think the most likely situation here is that you have got breast cancer, but we need to get it checked. I was so moved by Jenny's story earlier, and I can completely relate to that sort of shock factor. Nothing really ever prepares you for that. And at the time, my daughter was 8 years old, so that's incredibly hard when you've got young children as well. I remember texting Vanessa and saying, I need you. That's all I said. She knew instantly. She came straight up to London to meet me. And my husband was with me when I was given the diagnosis. And he went to meet Vanessa, and when they came back to the table, by the way, this is about a week later, when they came back to the table, I could see he'd been crying. And in fact, I think they both had tears in their eyes, and I said, why are you crying? I said, I need you. We've got to sort this out. And the weird thing, I think I went into a bit of business mode. My default mechanism is I've got to put a strategy together. What would you do in any challenge in business is you'd put a strategy together and you'd find a way to work through it, which is sort of very much how I approached it at the beginning.
Thank you for sharing that. And how has it impacted on your life? What's changed?
Just before I answer that, Laura, I would also sort of say to you that I've mentally had a very, I've always been a positive person. always. And I've faced many challenges in my life, both in business and personally. I lost my son, for example, when he was 8 months old. So, you know, I think when you've had to deal with challenges through your life, it does make you, it toughens you up, and it does make you quite resilient. And I remember thinking, God, I've dealt with worse than this. You know, and you know, Scarlett was a twin, so it was her twin brother that we lost. So for Scarlett, I've got to get myself through this, was always my thinking. So I was very determined that I was going to get through the other side. And I remember thinking one of the things I was going to do was not share this with anybody, except the people very close to me that knew, because I didn't want other people's reaction to influence or impact on my recovery. Now that's not the right answer. Everybody is different, and we will have to deal with it differently. Others will need that constant support and dialogue. But I've had a couple of experiences with people on the way where they haven't responded quite in the way that is helpful sometimes. And I'm also going to work and being able to, that was my escapism, people not knowing actually. You know, I didn't have to talk about it 24/7. And I've always set myself goals, and one of my goals that year, in 2016, was to have an amazing year. And in October, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it had also spread to my lymph nodes. And I had very aggressive treatment. In November, I had a neutropenic shock from sepsis, which anybody that's familiar with that knows that's really serious. And I remember, getting through that and thinking, this isn't, my goal of this is going to be an amazing year, isn't actually going to plan. What can I do to change that? And I just said to myself, okay, when I have my next scan in the new year, they're not going to be able to find it. And my husband took me away to Dubai for a week as sort of a bit of respite. And when I came back, I went for the scan, and they're saying, this is strange. There's something not right here. We think we can see some scar tissue, but it must be there, but obviously it's not showing. And I'm thinking to myself, I know it's not there. Now, whether it was or not, I don't know. But they were struggling to find it. I had 6 months of very aggressive chemo, and then I had my lumpectomy in April last year, the end of April this time last year, and then I had radiotherapy. I then went back for my blood test, the pathology, and I was told that I'd had a complete response to treatment. And my oncologist said to me, only 1% of patients with your type of tumour have it completely disappear. So obviously I felt totally blessed. I do think my attitude and my approach, and also the lifestyle changes that I've made, really played a big part in that process.
Could you just tell us a little bit more about that change in outlook and lifestyle?
So, I'm just one of these people, there's a problem, okay, how can I de-risk this? Obviously, my sort of business head again, probably. So, my diet is now totally unrecognisable. I juice twice a day. I have a bag of spinach a day. God knows how many carrots I eat and kale. But I put it all in a juice, a masticating juicer, because I just think that's a very quick way of getting lots of nutrients into your body, and it easily became part of my routine. I reduced the meat, I barely eat any meat now. I reduced the sugar drastically in my diet, reduced the alcohol. So I made some, and I do all the turmeric and all of garlic and onions and all of this every day, and actually just really enjoy cooking and really sort of got the whole family into it, which is great. From a lifestyle point of view, I meditate every day for just 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes is better than 10 or 15 minutes. It's better than nothing at all. I walk every day. I do yoga once a week. I do sauna probably twice a week. I do a salt bath twice a week. All of these different things, regardless of whether you've got or had or cancer at all, I think they're just amazing things to try and introduce into your life, and try and get your family engaged with the plan as well. And I think the other thing that I've done is I was doing 14-hour days, living off a diet of Red Bull and chocolate bars. You cannot live like that. And I only do the things that I feel really passionate about, which is why I'm here today.
So I have just one more question for you. I think you have started to empower women just generally in the boardroom as well as in the bedroom, I think was your words. And I know that you run a competition called Women on Wednesday. Can you just tell us a little bit about that initiative and how that works?
So what I do is every Wednesday I have... do you want to try that one? So I've been on Twitter now for about 6 years, and I noticed that a lot of people that were following me, I have a lot of business people following me, a lot of Ann Summers fans, a lot of West Ham fans, and a lot of women that were demonstrating that they were doing these amazing businesses and were asking me for advice. And of course it was a great opportunity to mentor people, just there and then. And I just came up with this idea of doing a competition which I call WOW, which stands for Women on Wednesday, and every Wednesday women tweet me their business between 1 and 3, and I'll pick my top 3, I'll profile them, I'll retweet them. I've created a whole WOW network where a whole community where they trade with each other on Facebook. I pick my top 3 overall for the year, and I hold a mentoring lunch for those 3 people. They also come down for a learning day with all our experts, and we do market days at Christmas. So there's lots and lots of things that we do, to help them through their business. Empowering women in business is something I feel really, really passionate about. My daughter, I said she was is 8 years old. I just thought I'd just share this because when she was 5 years old, I do a lot of public speaking. I certainly did in the past. I decided to take her to one of my speeches, which normally are mainly men in the room, but I wanted her to see Mummy up on stage and think this is normal, this is something that women do, not just men, because I really want Scarlett to grow up believing that she can be whatever she wants to be.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Now, I understand you very generously bought some product for her. I don't know that there's anything left, but we think the price for the Aston Martin is too cheap because there might be a few left in the boot. So if we could just pull that up a bit, then that would be useful.
Ladies, I saw you earlier. Bottoms in the air as you were delving down and grabbing them, putting it back. Listen, the bullets that were so popular in the Aston Martin, they are part of a very big family. And so what I'm thinking is, it's fantastic what this charity is doing. I think the more money that we can raise today would be amazing. We'd love you to bid on this prize. I'll put in an extra goodie bag to complement the little bullets that you've already got. I'm sure there'll be a rabbit or 2 in there. And please dig deep and let's raise as much money as we possibly can for this amazing, amazing charity.